Hey, what's going on? It's your boy Cameron Abbott over here at Knotty Gamers. I'm the unsexiest comedian that you know, and the man whose face was built for radio. Just here to give a day two kind of rundown real quick, just initial impressions that I had about the E3 events today, the conferences. Let's go ahead and just start things off at the top of the docket here. Microsoft. Microsoft had probably one of the best conferences that I've seen at E3 in a really long time. I'm talking games upon games upon games upon games. It really was just nailing it going through for a really long time, pacing wise. I felt they kind of got lost a little bit somewhere in some longer trailers than there probably needed to be. But overall, really concise, really just this is what we're doing. We admit it. PS4 won the game for these last consoles. We're resetting the board. This is where we are, this is where we're going forward. And they really kind of, I think, stuck a point out there saying, this is our new console that we're coming up with. It's this powerful, it's got this much going on for it, and we're likely going to be seeing it probably within the next year or two. And from what a lot of the people's reactions to it, a lot of developers that they had come and give kind of testimonials about the kind of hardware they're proposing. Project S, Project Scorpio. It's real. And it looks like it's really going to be a haymaker. So much so that I actually think Sony found out about it, canceled their announcement of Neo, because they realized we have to go back to the drawing board on this. There's just too much that we are not hitting on as far as benchmarks go. Like, I think they got that news a little bit earlier. They got a little tidbit or a tip from somebody, and they probably were just like, okay, we can't do this. We got to tighten up our ship. I don't know if they had already planned out their E3 conference by the time they made that decision, before they went public with that decision, but I couldn't help feel like this was just a shot across the bow. They're just like, we are here with this in-between generation of consoles, and we're not going to worry about numbers. We're calling it a project. Not only that, but we're going to introduce a slim version of our existing console. And really just, these are the things that we've done to improve it entirely. No more worries about the Kinect, no more DRM. They're really pushing towards a ubiquitous marketplace between Windows gaming and Xbox gaming, which is something that I've really felt like they should have done a long time ago, and I've seen them kind of make that efforts before, but not really in substantial ways. And now we're getting this. So Microsoft really felt like they had their head on straight. They knew exactly what they were doing. Some parts of their conference dragged on, I felt, a little bit too long, but overall, an amazing conference. I was really impressed. I really had to stand back a little bit and just be impressed by them really taking control of their own narrative in a way that they haven't been able to do since they announced the Xbox One. To the point where it doesn't really feel like they're quote-unquote, competing with one another. It's a matter of they're there together. We're raising this tide up to here. Let's see how far you guys can raise your side of the tide. And it really is just like this competition to improve gaming overall. So much so that there didn't feel like really just shots across the bow, not necessarily at Sony, but really saying, this is what we're doing, show us what you've got. Do better than us. It seems like this equal challenge, and it really feels like this arms race, but instead of being kind of a Cold War, it's a friendship, it's a rivalry. I really feel like it's more like a rivalry than a war, in which they're challenging each other to do better for gamers. That is the demand now. Can you do better for the gamers? Microsoft really had that on point. They didn't lull too long on too many things. Scalebound, I felt like, it's cool that they wanted to show us how good the game is looking, but the combat versus, the Western action RPG versus the Eastern action RPG, there's some dissonance there that I think needs to kind of resolve itself in the near future. But that's it for Microsoft, which, okay, I think I kind of put enough in there. Let's go ahead and move on to Ubisoft. Ubisoft had a really great conference at the beginning, and then lost itself. Now, they started off really wacky. It was clear that this is a Just Dance thing that they were doing at the beginning. It was to Queen's Don't Stop Me Now, which is one of my favorite songs of all time. And the way they did it was just wacky and fun and just felt like a Just Dance experience that you were seeing just on stage, which is cool. It's a really great... It really looked like it was a cool experience to watch live. A lot of dance performers. They touched on the Orlando shootings where the giraffe was like nodding solemnly during it, which, you know, it makes you chuckle a little bit, which is definitely not their intention, but it's what I took away from it. Outside of that, though, I'm trying to think here about this and if there's anything else. But, the Fractured But Whole stole the show from me. What a great looking game. What a great, funny adventure that I'm excited to go on. They announced that if you pre-order it now, you can get the digital code for PS4 and I think Xbox One and Steam as well. If you pre-order Fractured But Whole, you get a code for this updated version for the next generation of consoles, which is great because the Stick of Truth kind of came out in between. I played it on PC. I had a great time with it on PC, but I'm really interested in trying to get those trophies now for PS4 to the point where I want to play it. Not only that, but this looks like a game that you can play on your Vita through remote play. I'm excited for that. Oh, sorry. A little bit of a hiccup. I'm having some acid reflux issues. Guys. Anyway. It's been a long day. Reason I wasn't doing any of these recaps before now is just because I've been at work all day. Barely got home in time to kind of get ready for the Sony conference. So, speaking of, let's focus more on Ubisoft a little bit more. Ubisoft really had a good going. They just really kind of let things roll forward up until they got into the VR space, where it felt like this is what rich people are watching the show for. They have like these experiences where you need like 5 or 6 Vives to be hooked up to run these like simulation things, or Oculus Rifts that need to be hooked up, like 6 of them. That sounds like a problem that I will never have, except the problem of how do I get 6 VR headsets. I felt a little out of touch with especially the fact that they have both a Vive experience there as well as an Oculus Rift experience. Kind of like had a shift in tone going there for it for a while. Then it moved over to Assassin's Creed, the movie. I mean, here's the thing. I literally walked, like I was at work. I had left work right around the time that Fractured But Whole had basically wrapped up. And I had to go down to, this downtown where I live in Phoenix. And I had to, not in Phoenix, I live in anyway, I went to a record building. And I had to actually go through a stack of microfilm about this big, I'd say. Had over 500 things that I had to go through, 500 microfilms. And while I was doing that, I was just kind of off to the side of my eye while I'm looking for the records that I needed to look up for work. And while I'm doing that, I'm catching this conference. And the conference just kept going forward and forward and forward. And it wasn't even over until after I'd already left. I was back at my office before the conference was over. So that tells you how long it was. I mean, it was a ridiculously long, kind of cumbersome, especially towards the end. Spent almost an hour on the Assassin's Creed movie, I felt. That may not be its actual time, but that's how it felt. Overall, momentum problems throughout the thing. Definitely a lot of momentum problems. Well, if anybody had problems with momentum for Bethesda, they have forgotten them after the Ubisoft. And it kind of comes down to kind of the same problem of portfolio management. Ubisoft has an enormous portfolio management. So it was surprising to see them have that much trouble, but I'm also not surprised to see the kind of trouble that it did cause. Moving on to the most recent conference, the Sony conference. The conference that people are going to say blew all the other conferences out of the water. I mean, Sony has always had this sweet spot in the schedule, and they just took advantage of it, and they said, what do gamers want? Games, 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 games. And what kind of games do they want? Games they have been asking for forever. We have Crash 1, Crash 2, and Crash Warped all being remastered from the ground up to be released on the PS4. everybody who's been using the hashtag Save the Bandicoot, you saved the Bandicoot. You did it. Congratulations. I didn't think that this would ever happen. I was always hoping for those gamers who love those games. I know plenty of them. They've been wanting this forever. And of course, they put this announcement ahead of an announcement that people haven't been wanting to hear, which is Crash is being added to Skylanders. Skyland, and this is probably the most unanimously interesting thing, is how few developers or publishers were there for the Sony press conference. Normally they have EA with DICE doing something. Activision would be there for something. Adam Boyes would come out and give you his 3 or 4 things that he was going to talk about. None of that happened. Shuhei wasn't even there. Shuhei Yoshida wasn't even there, which was oddly striking. But, we didn't have it. Vita just felt like it got cut out of the lineup entirely. On the hardware kind of reel that they did. No Vita. So I guess this is their way of saying the Vita is... If you want Vita news, go to PSX, it sounds like. PSX had a very, strong Vita presence, and I don't think that was its last stand. I think that it still has more stuff coming for it. And but PSX is going to be where it's going to be at. If you want more Vita news, go to the PlayStation booth at E3. They probably have some there. Overall, though, I think the 3 themes that I took away from these 3 conferences were ubiquity from Microsoft with their push towards integration of the Windows and Xbox ecosystems to becoming just the Xbox Live ecosystem for both console and PC. Felt Ubisoft was, while disjointed, I felt like there was a strong push towards we have so much cool shit. And we're doing so much cool shit. This is the cool shit we're doing. So cool shit is kind of their theme. And that press conference was a hot piece of shit. Good stuff, though. Like, I shouldn't say it was a hot piece of shit, but it was a hot mess. It was very, very roughly organized. Kind of disjointed and sewn together in like a Frankenstein abomination type thing with the way that their pacing went. But great stuff came out of it. Say what you want about the Frankenstein monster. It's got a great set of bolts. A couple of pieces here and there are just fantastic. Moving on, though, to kind of the crux of the matter, which is the Knotty Gamers E3 predictions. Let me go ahead and get a little closer up here. I have here the final score tallied. This is, of course, the final E3 prediction score, and I'll kind of go through them. This will not be the final score, however, because Chandler does have an opportunity to contest the results, and we'll go through our predictions. Because I kind of listened to our podcast, got the predictions kind of written down the way I did, and could not entirely be correct. So, want to make sure that we get that clarified. We'll have the final results and tallies for you on Thursday with our E3 coverage show. That'll be our post-E3 show. I'm really looking forward to it because of how much content we're going to get just in the rest of this week. But it goes as such. For the EA press conference. No, that's not EA. Here's EA. I wrote these all in envelopes that I tore into the paper that they came from, so that's why they all look the same. Envelopes, man. So here we go. Chandler predicted Titanfall, a trailer, but no holiday 2017 release date announced. I predicted EA's Mass Effect Andromeda with a trailer, main character details, enemy details, or at least enemies being shown at some point during the trailer, and where it fits into the timeline. I got 0.25 of that with the trailer. Chandler got 0.5 of his sports/sims prediction, and I said Battlefield 1 will have live gameplay, 2 trailers, or 1 story trailer, and it had 2 trailers, one of which was a story trailer. So I only counted that as 1 prediction, however. So that was 1. So I came out of there with EA with 1.25, and Chandler came out of there with 1. Now, following that up to Chandler's Bethesda, he did not get his time frame on the increase in gigabytes for console mods. He did, however, predict Nuka World, which is 0.5 of his Fallout 4 prediction. And then for his second prediction, he correctly predicted ESO information and possible trailer. He got both from that. My Bethesda did fare better than his. I correctly predicted both a Doom DLC and Quake. However, I went with the Quake prediction part of it. We did get a new Quake Champions. Following that, I have Dishonored 2 being there, as well as having a release date, gameplay trailer with possible story information. We got both a gameplay trailer and a story trailer. So ended day 1 with 2.5 for Chandler and 3.25 for Cameron. Moving on to day 2, Microsoft. Chandler predicted that we would see more from the HoloLens. We saw nothing from the HoloLens. All VR pieces of pie that Chandler predicted getting are apparently coming through other ways of doing it, I guess, or they just haven't announced it. Following that up with the Scorpio, he did correctly predict that they would reveal that, as well as have a picture, and I give him credit for that because they had all that in the trailer. I, however, walked away with less on it. I predicted that we would see the Scorpio design shown, which we did in that trailer, but I also predicted a price, which we did not get. Chandler, and then I also predicted that we get a Halo, the next Halo installment. In this case, we got Halo Wars 2. So we ended Microsoft with 1 point for Chandler, 1.5 points for Cameron. Next, we had the Ubisoft, which Chandler predicted Wildlands, Tom Clancy Ghost Recon, with a release date, trailer, and possible gameplay about co-op details. We got all of that. Chandler got a 1 point there. But then he also predicted that we would have the Division raids announced, which was kind of a prediction he made, but this is one of the things I said I have to clarify with him if that was actually his prediction or not. I was listening to it. I was a little bit rushed. That may not be correct. Moving on to Watch Dogs 2 was my prediction. I got both gameplay and story information out of that for a full point. And then Division expansion I predicted would be there, as well as more story continuation, which we get. New gangs, which have been alluded to in the trailers. And information released about the people underneath. And then we also got a map expansion. I predicted map expansion would occur. However, part of my prediction was that it would be like outside of Manhattan. It looks like it is outside of Manhattan, but underneath it instead. So, like I said, these could be contested at some point. But I got 2 points out of that. Chandler got 1. Moving on to the Sony conference. Chandler and I both banked hard on the Neo and got nothing out of it. Chandler correctly predicted Horizon Zero Dawn would have story details as well as possible gameplay. He got both of those for a full point on that. And then I predicted, outside of my Neo prediction, Destiny 2 with a release window would be announced. Clearly didn't get that. So, following that, we end the E3 conferences with the total score. Cameron with 6.75 and Chandler with 5.5. Of course, that breakdown goes EA, I got 1.25, Chandler got 1 point. Bethesda, I got 2 points, Chandler got 1.5. Microsoft, I got 1.5, Chandler got 1. Ubisoft, I got 2, Chandler got 1. Sony, I got 0, and Chandler got 1. I really thought I was going to lose it after the Sony one, but apparently I put in the groundwork with 2 shutouts on Bethesda and Ubisoft. I kind of knocked them out of the park with my predictions on that. So that ends our predictions. This is now an 18-minute video, which is more than enough. So thank you so much for watching. For more E3 coverage, we're going to be continuing to kind of talk about it. We'll have our post-E3 coverage on Thursday with our podcast. We might do another live show. I'm not sure. It depends on our schedules on Thursday, but hopefully we will. If not, you can always go to knottygamers.com/podcast. Check out all of our podcasts that we have there. If you want to listen to us make our predictions, as well as further details about said predictions, you can go to knottygamers.com/podcast and listen for yourself. I'm, of course, Cameron Abbott, the unsexiest comedian that you know, the man whose face was built for radio. And you can follow me at Unsexiest Comedy. You can follow us both at Knotty Gamers. You can follow us on Instagram, Facebook. Really, we're on all the platforms you can imagine. I think we even have a Steam group. Yes, we have a Steam group. I remember that correctly now. But we hope to hear from you in the future. Thanks so much, and, well, as always, stay complicated.